Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Today is May 8th, and we're going to go over pages 4 and 5 on our distance learning schedule for Friday. The topic of today is Western African kingdoms and trade, how they prospered through trade, which we saw already the geography and a little bit of background on that trade over the last couple of days. So today we're going to get into a few of the civilizations, the kingdoms that are in this location of Africa, and it will also introduce you to some of the key important people that we will study a little closer next week. One of the kings of Mali, one of the three kingdoms we'll see today, and you might also get a little bit of an introduction to Ibn Battuta, our famous explorer for the unit that we'll look at next week. Before we jump into the packet, I just want to show you and remind you again that below this post, an announcement that has the screencast on it, on our classroom stream, you have some review questions that go along with what we've covered this week. So make sure that you're answering the review questions using the packet. After you've viewed this and checked your answers with the absentee slides that I will also post. But that will be on a Google form on a separate assignment. And I understand if you guys have lots of other things that you're trying to catch up on. If you don't get to to the point where you can answer those review questions today, if you want to do them over the weekends, that is certainly okay and just perfectly fine with me. As long as you're not getting too far behind, and come Monday when you do the next page in our packet, if you're caught up by then, you'll still be on schedule. So it's okay if you don't get this in today, but try to do it as soon as possible over the weekend so that we're ready to go on Monday. All right, so we're going to be on pages 4 and 5 of our packet. So here's page 4. The question at the top is, how did control of trade contribute to the expansion of West African kingdoms? So this page mostly goes over some basic geography to identify where were Ghana, Mali, and Songhai located. These are the three biggest, most important, and prominent West African kingdoms that we need to identify during this unit. So the directions here are examine the maps of the empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, and answer the accompanying questions. These questions are pretty straightforward, like I said, and I have two maps to help you answer these. So what I want to do is just kind of explain and give you a little bit of a hint and heads up for these questions, but I'm going to have you answer these on your own. You guys are perfectly more than capable of answering these on your own, I believe, and two of them actually have to do with thinking outside of the map, so to speak. Questions 3 and 4 will ask you a little bit more information from what you know about geography in this region and beyond, and some of the directions that these trade routes go into from Africa. So I'm going to challenge you guys to do these on your own, but I do want to just explain a little bit about what you should be looking for. So on our page, let's take a look at our first question. It says, which trade network connected to the West African kingdoms? So mostly on this first map is what I want you to focus on. If you look at our key, it tells you which African kingdoms are labeled where. It's also showing you some Eastern African kingdoms over here closer to the Middle East. Like you probably recognize the city of Cairo, and maybe can see where the Nile River goes down through there. So you do have some other civilizations labeled down here. But these West African kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai that are located over here, which big trade network did those connect to? And if you need a little bit of help and a refresher, you can go back to the top of page 2 in our packet, and there's a big map of the entire Eastern Hemisphere that shows all of the major trade routes and shows you which one is in Africa, which ones are also connected to other regions around it. So feel free to use that map on page 2 if you need it. Our second question, which of these three West African kingdoms was the largest? And this one is also a pretty straightforward question if you're looking at this map down here. And as long as you're paying attention to the labeling, to the key, and where they're identifying the shadings of these three civilizations and empires. That is a pretty straightforward question too. For question 3, however, this one asks you to go beyond the map a little bit. It says, following the trade lines on the top map, what other continents and or civilizations were these West African kingdoms connected to by trade? So other continents and other civilizations. So again, look at the three West African kingdoms. Look at the trade networks that are connecting to them, going through the Sahara Desert over to East Africa, even across the Mediterranean, over into the Middle East and beyond. Think about what continents and also what specific civilizations are in this direction over here. And if you were to continue on this trade line route through Cairo, through Baghdad, what continents, what civilizations are in that direction that we've studied earlier in this year? And if you need some help to just see the full Eastern Hemisphere map, go back to that map on page 2, and that will help you, kind of zoom out and picture the area that I want you to think about. And for question 4, this is also asking you to go beyond the maps a little bit. This is a recall question. Name a Middle Eastern city shown on the top map that we studied and give one reason that it was important. So again, using this map up here, first you have to think about where is the Middle East region. This was Unit 4 when we studied Islam, and we learned about the Arabian Peninsula, Arabian Desert. So these cities right here in this area, at least 2 of these I'm hoping are very familiar to you. I want you to pick one of those 3 or 4 cities that you see in that region and think about where we have heard those before. What did we learn about 1 or 2 of those cities? They both have, they all have, significance for certain civilizations that had been in that area, but certain ones have information and significance tied to maybe academics or religion or trade or both or all 3. So think about what we learned about some of those cities and make sure that you're giving me a specific answer with one reason why that city was important. All right, so pause the video here, take a moment to do those map questions on page 4 with some of that guidance, and then we'll go on to page 5 in just a moment. All right, so on page 5, the question at the top is, why were West African empires prosperous? So all 3 of these empires that are on the map, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, were successful. They were prosperous. They provided for their people. One in particular, Mali, actually experiences a golden age. And that's the king that presides over that golden age that we will look at next week. So the directions for this page is to read the text and watch the video below, then respond to the questions that follow. Here is your video clip, which I want you to watch on your own. It's about 3 minutes long. It gives you some extra, enriched, enhanced information beyond what we're going to read on the top of the page. So make sure that you're watching that before you answer these questions with me. All right, so why were African empires or kingdoms prosperous? Let's read this together and I'll emphasize and explain a few things as we go. The West African trading empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai were powerful and wealthy states that controlled the gold and salt trade in West Africa. That's what we spent the first day looking at, is the natural resources that were in the location of these empires. And that's going to be a major contributing factor to why they are prosperous, controlling the gold and salt trade in West Africa. Their cities were located at the intersections of trade routes. The Kingdom of Mali experienced one of the golden ages of West Africa. Islam came to West Africa through trade, and the rulers of Mali, who were called Mansas, were Muslim. The capital city of Mali, Timbuktu, was a prosperous center of trade and learning. Islamic scholars came to Timbuktu to study at the Sankore University, which was a fully staffed university that could house 25,000 students and had one of the largest libraries in the world. Now, we mentioned the capital city of the Kingdom of Mali, which is kind of the one that gets the highlight, the spotlight during this unit. King Musa, that we're going to look at next week, is from the Kingdom of Mali, presides over the Empire of Mali. So the capital city of Timbuktu, which is the capital of Mali, is going to get kind of a spotlight during this unit. So this next little paragraph gives us some information about Timbuktu and why it was an important city, which is one of our questions coming up next week, but will also help you answer question number 2 down here. So the Mali capital of Timbuktu. Let's read through this together. This excerpt below was written by a Swedish explorer in the early 1900s. So remember, this is still Middle Age times that we're studying. So this document would be considered what, a primary or a secondary source if it's written in the 1900s? It should be a secondary source because it's written after the fact. But this Swedish explorer is writing about this in the early 1900s, but his observations were as true when Mali ruled the area as they were hundreds of years later when he's exploring and writing about it. The remarkable features of Timbuktu are, then, its situation and its trade. We have only to take a look at the map to perceive that this town stands like a spider in its web. The web is composed of all the trade routes which start from the coast and converge on Timbuktu. So that first paragraph here, he's describing something he's putting on a map or he's seeing on a map. So I have the map right below here for you to look at. And he uses a very descriptive phrase to visualize where Timbuktu is and what will make it prosperous. He says that the city stands like a spider in the middle of a web. So Timbuktu is circled right here in black, and going out in every direction, kind of like the strands of a spider web, are all these trade routes going to the coast, up to the Mediterranean, across the Sahara Desert, all the way across to the eastern half of Africa as well. So Timbuktu being centrally located inside the middle of all these trade routes, just like a spider sits in the middle of its web, is going to help its prosperity. This is not a new concept. We've seen this with other trade routes and other cities, like the ones in the Middle East, that helped the Islamic civilizations also prosper because they had many, many trade routes going in and out of their cities. All right, let's continue to read. Caravans from the northern coast bring cloth, arms, meaning weapons, gunpowder, paper, tools, hardware, sugar, tea, coffee, tobacco, and a quantity of other articles to Timbuktu. But when they begin their journey through the Sahara, only half of the camels are laded or loaded. The other half are loaded with blocks of salt on the way, for salt is in great demand at Timbuktu. On the return journey northwards, the camels are laden or loaded with wares from the Sudan: rice, manioc, honey, nuts, monkey breadfruit, dried fish, ivory, ostrich feathers, India rubber. Notice there's something that is probably not originating here, but is traded to this place for what's the big wealthy item that Timbuktu has in this area? Probably for gold, but people from India are trading their rubber for the gold here. There's also leather and many other things. The largest caravans contain 500 or 1,000 camels and 500 men at most. The goods they can transport may be worth 28,000 pounds or more. So he's describing all these different things that are traded into Timbuktu and also traded out of Timbuktu. And he's not mentioning gold anywhere in here. But I want to remind you that that was certainly a item that is going to be coming out of this region. When you watch the video clip, you'll understand that gold is not necessarily mined right in the city. Timbuktu does not have a store of natural gold in the ground, but because of its central location, gold is being mined elsewhere and brought into the city. But that is where a lot of these traders coming from the coast and from the other side of the Sahara, that's why they're only loading up half of their camels with some of the food items and the other half with salt, because salt is being brought down into Timbuktu from other regions, and they know that those salt camels are going to be filled up with gold on the way back. All right, so if you haven't yet, take a pause on the video now and watch the 3-minute video clip on Timbuktu. Gives you a little more visual information and some extra info on some of the items that we've talked about in these two paragraphs. I will go over to the clips in just a second the slides, and fill those out with you. All right, so let's go over these two questions and then we will call it a day and you guys can enjoy your weekends. So the first question on the bottom of page 5 was, what religion was prominent in West Africa at this time? And we read together that a lot of the Mansas, or kings of the Kingdom of Mali, as well as probably these other West African kingdoms that were there too, were Muslim. So the religion that was prominent, which we'll see how it has a big effect with Mansa Musa's story next week, is the religion of Islam. The second question, why were Ghana, Mali, and Songhai wealthy and prosperous? I want you to identify 2 pieces of evidence that support your claim. So remember, evidence needs to be specific information, maybe even a quote from the text that we read on the page, or something that you watched in the video clip that's also right here. So I'm not going to answer this one specifically with you, but I do want to give you some guidance on how to answer it. So your answers, of course, will vary. There's lots of information, lots of evidence that you can use to say why Ghana, Mali, and Songhai were wealthy and prosperous. And when as you're answering this, when you pick your evidence, be specific. Give me maybe a quote or a phrase that you see in the text or that you heard in the video. So your answers are going to vary, but I will give you some guiding questions to consider, to think of. Think about, how did they become wealthy? What were they making their money off of? Prosperity needs to come as a result of wealth. It also has to be, something that provides stability and learning. So consider those as well. Where were these kingdoms located? Also think about the capital of the Kingdom of Mali. Where was that located? So consider their location. And then thirdly, what attracted scholars to their cities? So it's not all just about wealth and how they gained their monetary power, but what would bring someone who's simply interested in learning? Maybe about religion, maybe about inventions or history, or lots of other different topics. What would attract a scholar to some of these cities, especially to Timbuktu? The video clip has a very good little section that will help you answer this one as well. So when you're answering this question, again, make sure that you include text evidence or something from the video that you saw, and give me specifics, please. Make sure that you're always answering these questions, especially when it says why or give it evidence, with those specifics. And that is all, folks. So Friday, or today, make sure that you are answering the review questions that will be posted right underneath this announcement with the screencast on it. If it takes you a few more days over the weekend, that's perfectly fine. Next week, we're going to take a deeper look into Mansa Musa and the explorer Ibn Battuta. You'll have a couple of days to do the pages on them because there is a little bit more video clips and article readings and some in-depth information on that. So enjoy your weekend. Make sure you do the review questions, and I will see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.